Marcus Rodriguez wiped the sweat from his forehead as he finished installing the new security system at the downtown office building. At 34, he had calloused hands that told the story of years spent working with electrical wiring, cameras, and alarm systems. His toolkit was his most prized possession after his 8-year-old daughter, Emma, who was currently at her after-school program, probably wondering why Daddy was late again. The security installation business wasn't exactly thriving. Marcus had started his own company 3 years ago after his wife Sarah died in a car accident, leaving him to raise Emma alone. The life insurance money had helped initially, but medical bills and funeral costs had eaten through most of it. Now he struggled to keep food on the table and pay rent on their small apartment in the less desirable part of town. His phone buzzed with a text from Emma's school. Pickup time was 30 minutes ago. Please arrange alternative childcare if work commitments prevent timely pickup. Marcus felt that familiar knot in his stomach. The aftercare program charged extra fees for late pickups, money he didn't have to spare. What most people didn't know about Marcus was that before he became a father and started his security business, he had served 8 years in the Army's Special Forces. He'd been deployed to some of the most dangerous places on Earth, trained in combat, surveillance, and rescue operations. Those skills felt like a lifetime ago now, buried under the weight of single parenthood and financial stress. Marcus packed his tools quickly and drove his aging pickup truck to Emma's school. She was sitting alone in the aftercare room, drawing pictures of stick figures that looked like a father and daughter holding hands. When she saw him, her face lit up with that smile that made all his struggles worthwhile. "Sorry I'm late, Princess," he said, kneeling down to hug her. "It's okay. Daddy, Mrs. Johnson said you work really hard to take care of me." Emma's understanding broke his heart a little. She was too young to have to be so patient with his shortcomings. They drove home through the city center, past the gleaming office towers where people in expensive suits walked purposefully along the sidewalks. Marcus wondered what it would be like to have that kind of security, to not worry about whether there would be enough money for groceries next week. At a red light, Marcus noticed something odd. A black SUV with tinted windows had been following them for several blocks. His old military instincts kicked in automatically. He made a quick right turn, then another, watching his mirrors carefully. The SUV continued straight and Marcus relaxed slightly. Maybe he was being paranoid. Their apartment was small but clean. Marcus had painted Emma's room pink and hung up all her artwork on the walls. She had adapted well to their circumstances, never complaining about hand-me-down clothes or the fact that they couldn't afford the latest toys her classmates had. While Emma did her homework at the kitchen table, Marcus reviewed his finances on his laptop. The numbers weren't good. He had 3 small jobs lined up for next week, but they wouldn't be enough to cover rent and Emma's school expenses. He was considering taking a full-time job with a larger security company, which would mean giving up his dream of building his own business but would provide steady income and benefits. His phone rang, interrupting his worried calculations. The number was unfamiliar, but work calls often came from numbers he didn't recognize. "Rodriguez Security Solutions," he answered professionally. "Mr. Rodriguez, this is Patricia Chen from Meridian Industries. I got your number from the building manager at the Towers complex. I understand you specialize in high-end security installations." Marcus straightened up. Meridian Industries was one of the biggest companies in the city. "Yes, ma'am. We handle everything from basic alarm systems to comprehensive security networks. I need someone discreet and highly skilled. This is for personal security at my home. Money is no object, but I need someone who can work quickly and maintain absolute confidentiality. Are you available tomorrow evening?" Marcus's heart raced. A job with someone from Meridian could change everything. "Absolutely. Can you provide me with the details?" "I'd prefer to discuss this in person. Can you meet me at the Meridian building tomorrow at 6 p.m., 32nd floor, executive suite?" After hanging up, Marcus felt a surge of hope for the first time in months. He helped Emma with her math homework, made her favorite dinner of grilled cheese and tomato soup, and read her 2 bedtime stories instead of their usual one. As he tucked her in, Emma looked up at him with her mother's eyes. "Daddy, are you happy?" The question caught him off guard. "What do you mean, sweetheart? You look sad a lot. I wish I could help you not be sad." Marcus kissed her forehead. "Having you makes me the happiest person in the world, Emma. Don't ever worry about Daddy being sad, okay?" But as he closed her bedroom door, Marcus realized his 8-year-old daughter was more perceptive than he'd given her credit for. He was struggling, and despite his best efforts to hide it, she could sense his stress. That night, as he lay in bed staring at the ceiling, Marcus thought about the phone call from Patricia Chen. Something about it felt different from his usual jobs. There had been an urgency in her voice, almost like desperation masked by professional composure. His military training had taught him to trust his instincts, and something was telling him this job would be more complicated than a simple home security installation. He pulled out his laptop and did some research on Patricia Chen. She was the CEO of Meridian Industries, a brilliant businesswoman who had built the company from a small startup into a billion-dollar enterprise. She was known for her philanthropy and had been featured on the covers of several business magazines. At 36, she was young to be running such a large company, and Marcus wondered what kind of security concerns would drive someone in her position to call an unknown contractor rather than use one of the established corporate security firms. The more he thought about it, the more questions arose. But regardless of the complexity, this job could be the break he and Emma desperately needed. Tomorrow evening couldn't come soon enough. Marcus arrived at the Meridian building 15 minutes early, wearing his best button-down shirt and the only tie he owned. The lobby was all marble and glass with modern art pieces that probably cost more than he made in a year. Security guards in crisp uniforms checked his identification and directed him to the executive elevators. The 32nd floor was even more impressive. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking view of the city, and the reception area looked like something from a luxury hotel. A professional-looking woman in her 50s greeted him. "Mr. Rodriguez, Ms. Chen is waiting for you in her office." Patricia Chen's office was larger than Marcus's entire apartment. She stood behind a massive desk talking quietly on her phone. When she saw him, she held up one finger and finished her conversation quickly. "Mr. Rodriguez, thank you for coming on such short notice." She was shorter than he'd expected, maybe 5'4", but there was an intensity about her that commanded attention. Her handshake was firm, businesslike. "Please call me Marcus. Thank you for considering my company for this project." She gestured for him to sit in one of the leather chairs across from her desk. "I'll be direct with you, Marcus. This isn't a typical security installation job. I need someone with very specific skills, and after reviewing your military record, I believe you might be exactly what I need." Marcus was surprised. "My military record? How did you—" "I had you thoroughly investigated after the building manager recommended you. 8 years Army Special Forces, decorated combat veteran, specialized training in surveillance and tactical operations. You received an honorable discharge and started your security business 3 years ago after your wife's death." The casual mention of Sarah's death stung, but Marcus kept his expression neutral. "May I ask why my military background matters for a home security job?" Patricia walked to the window looking out at the city lights. "Because I don't think I need home security. I think I need personal protection." She turned back to face him. "For the past 3 weeks I've noticed things. Cars that seem to follow me. The same faces appearing in different locations. Someone went through my garbage. My assistant found evidence that my office had been searched after hours." Marcus leaned forward. "Have you contacted the police?" "And tell them what?" "That I have a feeling I'm being watched. I'm a public figure, Marcus. There are always photographers, reporters, business rivals looking for information. But this feels different, more organized, more dangerous." She pulled out a manila folder from her desk drawer. "Yesterday I received this." Marcus opened the folder and found several photographs. They showed Patricia leaving her office, getting into her car, entering a restaurant. The pictures were taken from various angles and distances, clearly shot with telephoto lenses by someone with professional surveillance training. There was no note, no demands, just the photos delivered to my home address. "That address isn't public information, Marcus. Whoever sent these knows where I live, where I work, what I drive, and where I go." Marcus studied the photos more carefully. "These are good quality professional equipment. The angles suggest multiple people were involved in taking them. This isn't some amateur stalker." "That's what I thought too. I need someone who can figure out who's doing this and why. Someone who can protect me if things escalate. The corporate security firms I've contacted want to assign me a team of bodyguards and turn my life into a circus. I need something more subtle." Marcus set the folder down. "Ms. Chen, I appreciate your confidence in me, But I'm not a private investigator or a bodyguard. I install security systems. But you were trained for much more than that, weren't you? You know surveillance, counter-surveillance, threat assessment. You understand how people like this operate. She was right, and Marcus found himself intrigued despite his reservations. The analytical part of his mind was already working through the photos, noting details, forming theories. Even if I wanted to help, I have responsibilities. I'm a single father. I can't put myself in dangerous situations, Patricia nodded. I understand. But I'm prepared to make this worth your while. $50,000 for 2 weeks of work, plus a $20,000 bonus if you can identify who's behind this. Marcus tried to hide his shock. $70,000 was more money than he'd made in the past year. It would solve all his financial problems and give Emma the security she deserved. What exactly would you need me to do? Stay close to me, analyze my daily routines and identify vulnerabilities. Help me figure out who these people are and what they want. Use your skills to turn the tables on them. Marcus thought about Emma, about her patient understanding when he was late picking her up, about the bills piling up on his kitchen table. I'd need to arrange childcare for my daughter. Done. I'll have my assistant arrange for a full-time nanny. Background checked, bonded, whatever you need to feel comfortable. The offer was almost too good to be true, which made Marcus suspicious. Why me? With your resources, you could hire former FBI agents, corporate security specialists, people with much more relevant experience. Patricia was quiet for a moment. Because I've been researching you for 3 days and everything I've learned tells me you're someone I can trust. You're a good father who's working hard to provide for his daughter. You served your country with honor. You've never been arrested, never defaulted on a loan, never done anything that suggests you can be bought or corrupted. In my world, Marcus, that's incredibly rare. She walked back to her desk and pulled out a contract. This is a standard consulting agreement. 2 weeks with the possibility of extension if needed. All expenses paid plus the fees we discussed. Marcus read through the contract carefully. It was straightforward, with confidentiality clauses and liability protections for both parties. When would this start? Tomorrow. I have a board meeting at 10 a.m., lunch with potential investors, and a charity gala in the evening. A typical day that would give whoever is watching me plenty of opportunities. Marcus thought about Emma's face when he told her they wouldn't have to worry about money anymore.
He thought about being able to afford a better apartment in a safer neighborhood.
Maybe even start saving for her college education. I'll need tonight to make arrangements for Emma and prepare. Patricia smiled for the first time since he'd arrived. So you'll take the job? Marcus signed the contract. Yes, but I want to be clear about something. If this becomes too dangerous, if I think these people might target my daughter to get to me, I'm out immediately. Understood and agreed. She shook his hand again. Marcus, I know this is a risk for you. I want you to know I don't take your trust lightly. As Marcus left the building, his mind was racing with plans and preparations. He needed to arrange for Emma's care, review his old military manuals on surveillance and counter-surveillance, and try to get some insight into what kind of threat Patricia Chen was facing. Walking to his truck, Marcus noticed a man in a dark jacket who seemed to be paying too much attention to the building entrance. When Marcus looked directly at him, the man immediately turned and walked away. It could have been nothing, but Marcus's instincts were telling him that starting tomorrow he would need to be very careful indeed. Marcus spent the night preparing like he was going back into combat. He cleaned and checked his concealed carry pistol, which he hadn't touched since leaving the army. He studied maps of the city, identifying safe routes and potential trouble spots around Patricia's office and home. Most importantly, he called his neighbor Mrs. Santos, an elderly woman who had become like a grandmother to Emma. I have a job opportunity that could change everything for us, he explained, but I'll need someone to watch Emma for a few days, maybe 2 weeks. Mrs. Santos, who had been widowed for 10 years and loved having Emma around, agreed immediately. That little angel can stay with me as long as needed. You take care of your business. The next morning, Marcus dropped Emma off early, promising to call her every day. Patricia had arranged for him to pick up a rental car, a gray sedan that would blend in with traffic better than his distinctive pickup truck. He arrived at Patricia's penthouse apartment at 7 a.m. The building had excellent security, but Marcus immediately spotted weaknesses. The parking garage had blind spots, the loading dock was poorly monitored, and the fire stairs could be accessed from the outside. Patricia emerged from the elevator wearing a sharp business suit, looking every inch the successful CEO. Good morning, Marcus. Ready for your first day as my shadow? I've identified several security issues with this building already. She raised an eyebrow. Such as? As they walked to her car, Marcus pointed out the vulnerabilities he'd noticed. If someone wanted to get to you, there are at least 4 ways they could access this building without going through the main security checkpoint. Patricia's car was a black BMW sedan, expensive but not flashy. Marcus had suggested she vary her routine, so instead of having her driver take the usual route to the office, he drove while she sat in the passenger seat. This feels strange, Patricia admitted as they merged into morning traffic. I'm used to working during the commute. Get used to feeling strange for a while. Predictable routines make you vulnerable. Marcus kept one eye on traffic and another on the mirrors. 2 blocks from Patricia's building, he spotted a white van that seemed to be maintaining the same distance behind them. When Marcus changed lanes, the van changed lanes. When he slowed down, the van slowed down. We're being followed, he said calmly. Patricia tensed. Are you sure? White van, 3 cars back. Been with us since we left your building. Marcus made a series of quick turns through side streets. The van stayed with them. Definitely following us. What do we do? Marcus thought quickly. They were in a busy commercial district with plenty of witnesses and escape routes. We're going to find out who they are. He pulled into a shopping center parking lot and parked between 2 larger vehicles where the BMW would be partially hidden. Stay in the car and get down. The white van circled the parking lot twice before stopping at the far end. Marcus watched through the side mirror as 2 men got out. One was tall and lean, wearing a baseball cap and dark sunglasses. The other was shorter but more muscular, with a thick neck and military-style buzz cut. Marcus recognized the type immediately. These weren't amateur stalkers or paparazzi. These were professionals, probably former military or law enforcement. The way they moved, how they positioned themselves to watch multiple exits, their communication through subtle hand signals, everything screamed professional surveillance team. After 20 minutes, the men got back in their van and drove away. Marcus waited another 10 minutes before starting the BMW. Who were they? Patricia asked. Professionals. This isn't some business rival trying to get inside information on your company. These people have serious training. They drove to the Meridian building using a route that took them through the city's financial district. Marcus parked in the building's garage and escorted Patricia to her office, noting every person they passed, every face that seemed to pay them too much attention. Patricia's assistant, Janet, was waiting with a schedule full of meetings and phone calls. Marcus positioned himself where he could see both the office entrance and the window, watching for any signs of surveillance from the building across the street. During Patricia's board meeting, Marcus studied the personnel files of everyone who had access to her floor. He cross-referenced names with military databases, looking for connections that might explain the professional surveillance team. Around noon, Patricia's phone rang with a call from an unknown number. Marcus had given her a small recording device and she activated it before answering. Ms. Chen, I hope you enjoyed your drive this morning, a man's voice said. The caller was using a voice modifier to disguise his identity, but Marcus could tell he was reading from a script. Who is this? Patricia demanded. Someone who has been watching you very carefully. You've made some interesting changes to your routine lately. Added some new security, haven't you? Marcus felt his blood run cold. They knew he was involved. I don't know what you're talking about. Ms. Chen, please don't insult our intelligence. The man driving your car this morning, Marcus Rodriguez, former Army Special Forces. Single father struggling financially until you hired him yesterday. We know everything? Patricia looked at Marcus with fear in her eyes. The caller continued. We had hoped to handle this matter quietly, but you've forced us to be more direct. Tonight you will attend the charity gala as planned. You will act normally. After the event, you will go home alone. Mr. Rodriguez will not accompany you. If you follow these instructions, no harm will come to you. If you don't, the line went dead. Marcus immediately started making calls. He contacted a former Army buddy who worked private security, asking him to discreetly watch Emma and Mrs. Santos. He called the police detective he knew from installing security at the precinct, giving him a heads up about potential trouble without revealing too many details. They know about Emma, Marcus told Patricia. That changes everything. Patricia was pacing her office, clearly shaken. Maybe we should call this off. I don't want your daughter in danger because of me. Too late for that. They already know I'm involved. The only way to protect Emma now is to finish this. Marcus analyzed the phone call. They want you at the gala tonight, but they want you alone. That tells me they're planning something during the event or immediately after. So we don't go. No, we go, but not the way they expect. Marcus spent the afternoon making preparations. He contacted the venue for the charity gala, identifying security weaknesses and exit strategies. He arranged for backup, calling in favors from 3 other former Special Forces soldiers who lived in the city. Most importantly, he began to piece together who might be behind the surveillance. Patricia's company had recently been involved in a major government contract, developing security software for federal agencies. There were competing companies that had lost millions when Meridian won the contract. But as Marcus dug deeper into the files Patricia provided, he found something more troubling. Meridian's security software had uncovered evidence of corruption in a defense contract worth nearly $1 billion. Patricia had been planning to turn this evidence over to federal investigators next week. Suddenly, the professional surveillance team made perfect sense. This wasn't about business competition. This was about covering up criminal activity that could destroy careers and send people to prison. As evening approached, Marcus realized they were walking into a trap. But with Emma's safety hanging in the balance, he had no choice but to spring it on his own terms. The charity gala was being held at the Grand Metropolitan Hotel, one of the city's most prestigious venues. Marcus arrived 2 hours early, dressed as hotel maintenance staff thanks to uniforms provided by his former Army contact. He spent 90 minutes mapping every entrance, exit, stairwell, and service corridor. The ballroom could hold 800 people, with multiple levels connected by grand staircases. Too many places for threats to hide. Too many civilians who could be hurt if things went wrong. Marcus identified 3 potential escape routes and positioned his backup team accordingly. Tony Vasquez, his former squad leader, was stationed near the main entrance disguised as a valet. Mike Chen, no relation to Patricia, was working as temporary security for the hotel. Jake Morrison had gotten himself hired as a bartender for the evening. All 3 men were armed and knew the signals Marcus would use if he needed help. Patricia arrived at 7 p.m. in a stunning black evening gown, looking every inch the successful businesswoman attending a social function, but Marcus could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her eyes constantly scanned the room. "Remember," Marcus said through the tiny earpiece she wore, "act normal. Smile, shake hands, make small talk, but stay where I can see you." The gala was in full swing within an hour. Patricia moved through the crowd expertly, talking with donors and board members, accepting congratulations on Meridian's recent success. Marcus stayed close, but not obviously so, blending in with the other security personnel and hotel staff. At 9:15 p.m., Marcus spotted them. The same 2 men from the white van were now dressed in expensive suits, mingling with the crowd like invited guests. The tall one was near the bar, the shorter one by the auction display. They were positioning themselves to control Patricia's movement through the room. "We have company," Marcus whispered into his throat mic, alerting his team. But something felt wrong. These men were being too obvious, too easy to spot. Marcus's military training had taught him to look for what wasn't visible, to question the obvious threat. That's when he saw her. A woman in a red dress, probably in her 40s, with perfectly styled blonde hair. She was talking animatedly with a group near the stage, but her eyes kept flicking toward Patricia. Unlike the 2 obvious surveillance men, this woman was good. She blended perfectly with the wealthy crowd, her body language relaxed and natural. Marcus moved closer, pretending to check the audio equipment near the stage. He managed to overhear part of her conversation. "Such a shame about the Meridian situation," she was saying. "I hear Patricia Chen has been under a lot of stress lately. Sometimes successful people make poor decisions when they're overwhelmed." The comment seemed innocent enough, but Marcus caught the subtle way she was steering the conversation, planting seeds of doubt about Patricia's mental state. This woman was preparing the ground for something. At 10 p.m., the gala's auction began. Patricia was scheduled to give a brief speech about Meridian's charitable contributions. As she walked toward the stage, Marcus noticed the 2 obvious surveillance men moving to flank her path. "Something's happening," he whispered to his team. "Be ready." Patricia reached the podium and began her speech. She talked about the importance of corporate responsibility, about using success to help others. The crowd responded warmly, applauding at appropriate moments. Then the lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in immediately, bathing the ballroom in an eerie red glow. The crowd murmured in confusion, but there was no panic yet. Hotel staff were already moving to restore power, reassuring guests that it was likely a minor electrical issue. But Marcus knew better. In the confusion of the darkened room, he saw the woman in red moving purposefully toward the stage. She had something in her hand, small, compact, probably a syringe. "Patricia, get down," Marcus shouted, pushing through the crowd. The woman in red moved fast, but Marcus was faster. As she reached the stage, he tackled her from behind, sending them both crashing into a table of auction items. The syringe flew from her hand, skittering across the floor. The two surveillance men immediately moved toward the commotion, but Marcus's backup team was ready. Tony intercepted the tall one near the entrance, while Mike took down the shorter one by the bar. Jake Morrison vaulted over the bar he'd been working behind, helping to control the situation. Hotel security rushed toward the disturbance, but the real security team was already in place. Within minutes, all three attackers were subdued and the police were on their way. As the main lights came back on, revealing the chaos in the ballroom, Marcus helped Patricia down from the stage. She was shaking but unharmed. "Are you okay?" he asked. "I think so." "What was in that syringe?" The woman in red, now in zip-tie handcuffs courtesy of Mike's security supplies, glared at them with undisguised hatred. "You have no idea what you've interfered with," she spat. Detective Sarah Williams, Marcus's contact at the police department, arrived with a full team of officers. As the three attackers were being arrested, she pulled Marcus aside. "What exactly did we walk into here, Marcus?" "Corporate espionage that turned into attempted kidnapping, maybe worse." He handed her the syringe, which Jake had retrieved. "This needs to be tested immediately. I'm guessing it's some kind of sedative." Patricia was giving her statement to another detective, explaining about the surveillance, the threatening phone call, and the evidence she had uncovered about the defense contract corruption. As the ballroom cleared, Marcus realized the immediate threat was over, but the larger problem remained. The three people they'd caught tonight were probably hired professionals. The real masterminds behind the plot were still out there. "This isn't finished," he told Patricia as they waited for the police to complete their investigation. "What do you mean? These people, whoever hired them, they're not going to give up just because we stopped one attempt. The evidence you have about the defense contract corruption, that's worth billions of dollars to the people involved." "They'll try again." Patricia looked exhausted. The evening's events had taken their toll, and Marcus could see the fear she'd been hiding behind her composed exterior. "So what do? We go on the offensive. Tomorrow we take your evidence to the FBI. We make sure the right people know what you've discovered. Once that information is public, you'll be safer because killing you won't stop the investigation anymore." As they left the hotel, Marcus kept scanning for threats. The parking garage felt too quiet, too empty. His instincts were screaming that something was still wrong. That's when he saw the glint of light from the building across the street. A scope reflection. "Sniper!" Marcus yelled, tackling Patricia behind a concrete pillar just as the first shot rang out. The concrete exploded inches from where Patricia's head had been a second earlier. Marcus drew his pistol, trying to get a fix on the shooter's position while keeping Patricia covered. This wasn't over. In fact, Marcus realized with a sinking feeling, it was just beginning. Two more shots shattered the concrete around them before Marcus could locate the sniper's position. The shooter was on the 8th floor of the office building across the street, probably using the cover of an empty office suite. "Stay down," Marcus told Patricia, speaking into his throat mic. "Tony, Mike, Jake, we have a sniper in the Hartley building, 8th floor, east side. Needs suppression fire and an extraction route." Police sirens were already wailing in the distance, responding to reports of gunshots. But Marcus knew they couldn't wait for help. The sniper had them pinned behind the concrete pillar, and it was only a matter of time before he found a better angle. Marcus made a split-second decision. "Patricia, when I say run, you sprint to that black SUV 20 yards to your left. Don't look back, don't hesitate. My team will cover you. What about you? I'm going to end this." Marcus had spotted a service entrance to the Hartley building during his earlier reconnaissance. If he could get inside and reach the 8th floor, he could take out the sniper from behind. "Run," Marcus shouted. laying down covering fire toward the sniper's position. Patricia sprinted toward the SUV while Tony and Mike emerged from their positions, adding their firepower to keep the sniper's head down. Jake had already started the SUV's engine, ready for a quick escape. While his team provided cover, Marcus ran in the opposite direction, using parked cars for concealment as he made his way to the office building. The service entrance was locked, but his lock-picking skills from Special Forces training hadn't gotten rusty. The building's stairwell was dark and quiet. Marcus climbed 8 flights as quickly as possible, his pistol drawn and ready. The 8th floor was a maze of empty office suites, recently vacated and not yet rented to new tenants. Marcus moved carefully through the cubicle maze, following the sound of occasional gunshots as the sniper continued to fire at his team's positions. The shots were coming from the corner office at the end of the hall. Through the glass partition, Marcus could see the sniper's silhouette. The man was professional, methodical, using a high-powered rifle with a nightscope. But he was focused entirely on the targets below and hadn't considered the possibility of an attack from behind. Marcus had 2 choices: try to take the sniper alive for questioning, or eliminate the immediate threat to protect his team and Patricia. The decision was made for him when the sniper suddenly turned, having sensed movement in the office. The man was fast, swinging his rifle around toward Marcus's position. But Marcus was faster. 2 quick shots sent en masse, and the sniper collapsed behind his makeshift shooting position. Threat neutralized, Marcus reported through his throat mic. Patricia, are you safe? We're good, Jake's voice came back. Police are here. Detective Williams wants to talk to you. Marcus secured the sniper's rifle and checked the body for identification. No wallet, no ID, but there was a professional quality radio and what looked like a high-end encrypted cell phone. These people were definitely not amateurs. By the time Marcus made it back to street level, the parking garage looked like a crime scene from a movie. Police cars, ambulances, and FBI vehicles were everywhere. Detective Williams met him at the building entrance. Marcus, what the hell is going on? We've got 1 dead sniper, 3 people arrested at the hotel, and reports of a full-scale shootout in downtown. It's bigger than we thought. Sarah. Patricia Chen uncovered evidence of corruption in a $1 billion defense contract. Someone is willing to kill to keep that information quiet. FBI agent Jennifer Torres approached them. She was tall, no nonsense, with the kind of presence that commanded immediate attention. Mr. Rodriguez. I'm Agent Torres, Federal Crimes Division. Ms. Chen has been telling us about the evidence she discovered. We need to get her into protective custody immediately. Marcus found Patricia sitting in the back of an ambulance being checked over by paramedics. She was physically unharmed but clearly shaken by the evening's events. How did you know? She asked when she saw him. How did you know to look for the sniper? Training and experience. But mostly I got lucky. Agent Torres joined them. Ms. Chen, we're prepared to offer you federal protection while we investigate this matter. But we need to see this evidence you've mentioned. Patricia looked at Marcus. It's in a safe deposit box at First National Bank. I wanted to keep it separate from the office in case someone tried to break in. We'll retrieve it first thing in the morning, Torres said. Tonight we're moving you to a secure federal facility. What about Marcus? Patricia asked. These people know who he is. They know about his daughter. Marcus had been thinking about the same thing. Emma was safe for now with Mrs. Santos and the security team he'd arranged, but long-term she could still be a target. We can extend protection to Mr. Rodriguez and his daughter, Torres offered, at least until we've rolled up this conspiracy. But Marcus had a different idea. Agent Torres, how would you feel about using Patricia and me as bait? Both women looked at him like he'd lost his mind. Hear me out. These people have shown they're willing to escalate to murder to keep their secret safe. They've also shown they have significant resources and professional capabilities. If we just hide Patricia away in protective custody, they'll wait us out. Eventually, she'll have to come back to her life and they'll be ready. Agent Torres crossed her arms. What are you suggesting? We make them think they succeeded tonight. We let it leak that Patricia was seriously injured in the attack, that she's in critical condition at the hospital. Then we set up a fake medical transport tomorrow. Make it look like we're moving her to a different facility. They'll try to finish the job, but we'll be ready for them. Patricia shook her head. That's insane. You're talking about using me as bait for people who just tried to kill us. Patricia, look at what happened tonight. They had a 3-person team at the hotel plus a sniper as backup. That level of coordination and resources means they're not going to give up. The only way to end this is to force them into making a mistake. Agent Torres was quiet for a long moment, considering the plan. It could work, she finally said. But it would require precise coordination. One mistake and people die. Marcus nodded. I understand the risks. But these people know who I am, where I live, where my daughter goes to school. The only way to protect Emma long-term is to end this threat completely. 3 hours later, they had a plan in place. The local news would report that Patricia Chen had been critically wounded in a downtown shooting and was being treated at Metropolitan General Hospital. Tomorrow afternoon, an ambulance would transport her to a secure medical facility outside the city. In reality, Patricia would be wearing a bulletproof vest and surrounded by FBI agents disguised as medical personnel. The route would take them through an industrial area where Torres could position additional teams to surround any attackers. Marcus would be driving the ambulance, with Patricia and 2 agents in the back. If the plan worked, they would draw out whoever was behind the conspiracy and capture them. If it failed, Patricia could die, and Marcus might never see Emma again. As dawn broke over the city, Marcus called to check on his daughter. Mrs. Santos answered on the first ring. How is she? Marcus asked. She's worried about you. She knows something serious is happening, even though I've tried to keep it light. When will you be home? Soon, I hope. Give her a kiss for me and tell her Daddy is going to make sure she's safe. Marcus spent the morning at FBI headquarters, going over the plan again and again with Torres and her team. Every detail had to be perfect. The fake ambulance route, the positioning of backup teams, the communication protocols, the extraction plans if things went wrong. At noon, local news stations reported that tech CEO Patricia Chen had been shot during a charity gala and was fighting for her life at Metropolitan General Hospital. The story included details about her recent business success and speculation about whether the shooting was related to corporate espionage. Torres monitored communications intercepts throughout the day, looking for any chatter that might indicate the conspirators were taking the bait. At 3 p.m., they got what they were looking for. 2 cell phones registered to fake identities made calls within 5 minutes of each other, Torres reported. Both calls went to numbers we can't trace, but the timing is suspicious. I think they're planning something for the transport at 4:30 p.m. Marcus climbed into the driver's seat of the specially equipped ambulance. Patricia was in the back, wearing full body armor under a hospital gown, with FBI agents posing as paramedics on either side of her. She looked pale but determined. You sure about this? Marcus asked through the intercom. No, Patricia replied. But you're right. Running and hiding isn't a long-term solution. As they pulled out of the hospital's ambulance bay, Marcus spotted the white van from yesterday parked across the street. Different license plates, but same vehicle. They were definitely being watched. The route Torres had planned took them through downtown, then out toward the industrial district on the city's east side. Marcus drove at normal ambulance speed, not too fast to suggest emergency, not too slow to seem suspicious. 5 minutes into the drive, Marcus spotted trouble in his side mirror. 3 vehicles were following them. The white van, a black sedan, and a gray pickup truck. They were maintaining distance but clearly coordinating their movements. We've got company, Marcus reported. 3 vehicles, professional formation. Torres's voice came through the radio. We see them. Teams are in position. Continue to Checkpoint Alpha. Checkpoint Alpha was an intersection where the main road passed under a railroad bridge. Torres had agents positioned on the overpass and in buildings on both sides of the road. It was the perfect place to spring their trap. As the ambulance approached the underpass, the 3 following vehicles suddenly accelerated, moving to surround them. Marcus had expected this, but the coordination was impressive. These people were definitely professionals. Here we go, Marcus said, his military training taking over. Everyone hold on. The white van pulled alongside the ambulance on the left while the black sedan moved up on the right. The gray pickup stayed behind, blocking any retreat. Marcus could see weapons being readied in all 3 vehicles. That's when Agent Torres sprang the trap. FBI vehicles appeared from every direction like pieces of a perfectly choreographed operation. Agents rappelled from the railroad bridge above, while armored SUVs blocked both ends of the underpass. The 3 vehicles that had been pursuing the ambulance found themselves trapped in a box with nowhere to run. Marcus brought the ambulance to a controlled stop as FBI agents swarmed the area. Through his mirrors, he watched as the occupants of all three vehicles were arrested at gunpoint. No shots were fired. The overwhelming show of force convinced the attackers to surrender immediately. Agent Torres's voice came through the radio. "All targets secure." "Nice work, everyone." Patricia's voice was shaky through the intercom. "Is it over?" "This part is," Marcus replied, but he knew the real work was just beginning. Over the next several hours, the arrested conspirators began talking. The woman in the red dress from the hotel turned out to be Sandra Mitchell, a former CIA operative turned private contractor. The sniper was David Park, ex-military with an impressive but disturbing resume of mercenary work. The surveillance team consisted of former federal agents who had been discharged for misconduct. But the most important arrest came 3 days later, when FBI agents raided the offices of Blackstone Defense Contracting. The evidence Patricia had uncovered led to the discovery of a massive fraud scheme involving inflated contracts, kickbacks to government officials, and the systematic overbilling of taxpayers for military equipment that was never delivered. The CEO of Blackstone, Robert Henley, had been stealing from defense contracts for over 5 years. When Patricia's security software discovered the discrepancies, Henley had hired the professional team to eliminate her before she could expose the conspiracy. The total fraud exceeded $800 million. 2 weeks after the ambulance operation, Marcus sat in Patricia's office at Meridian Industries. The view of the city was the same, but everything else had changed. Patricia had testified before Congress about the defense contract fraud. Blackstone's CEO was facing federal charges, and 3 government officials had been arrested for accepting bribes. "The FBI says we'll probably have to testify again when the trials start," Patricia said. "Pouring coffee for both of them, that's fine. Emma and I are safe now that the whole story is public." Marcus's life had indeed been transformed, but not just because the threat was over. Patricia had insisted on paying him the full $70,000 despite the job extending well beyond the original 2 weeks. More importantly, she had offered him something that could change his and Emma's future forever. "I've been thinking about your security company," Patricia said. "Meridian Industries needs a head of corporate security. Someone who understands both the technical side and the human threats. Someone I can trust completely." Marcus had been expecting this conversation. "Patricia, I appreciate the offer, but I'm not sure I'm ready to give up my independence." "You wouldn't have to." Rodriguez Security Solutions would become a subsidiary of Meridian. You'd keep your own company, but you'd have the resources to take on bigger clients, hire additional personnel, and provide Emma with the kind of security she deserves. The offer was generous beyond anything Marcus had imagined. A steady salary, benefits, office space in the Meridian building, and the opportunity to build his security business with the backing of a major corporation. But more than the financial benefits, Marcus had discovered something during the past 2 weeks. Working with Patricia had reminded him of what he was capable of when he had the resources and support to do his job properly. He had felt useful, competent, valued in a way that installing basic alarm systems never provided. "There's something else," Patricia continued. "I've been alone for a long time, Marcus. Building this company, focusing on my career, it didn't leave much room for personal relationships. These past 2 weeks working with you, seeing how you handle pressure, how you care for Emma, how you put other people's safety before your own," she paused. Looking out the window at the city they had both helped make a little safer. "I know this is complicated. We've been through something intense together. Maybe I'm confusing gratitude with something else, but I'd like to find out." Marcus had been aware of the growing connection between them, but he hadn't allowed himself to think about it seriously. His life was complicated enough with single parenthood and building his business. "Patricia, you saved my life by hiring me. Emma and I would have lost our apartment next month if you hadn't called. But that doesn't mean you owe me anything more. That's not what this is about." She turned to face him. "Marcus, you could have taken my money and provided basic protection. Instead, you put yourself in the line of fire to keep me safe. You risked your life, your daughter's security because you believed it was the right thing to do. That's not something you can hire. That's who you are." 3 months later, Marcus stood in the playground behind Emma's new school, watching his daughter play with her new friends. The school was in a much better neighborhood than their old apartment, with smaller classes and teachers who had time to give each student individual attention. Rodriguez Security Solutions now occupied a full floor of the Meridian building. Marcus had hired 2 former military colleagues and a cybersecurity specialist. They handled everything from executive protection to comprehensive security audits for major corporations. Emma had adjusted to their new life with the resilience that continued to amaze Marcus. She loved their new apartment, with its 2 bedrooms and a kitchen large enough for a proper dining table, but more than the material improvements, she seemed to sense that her father was happier, more confident, less worried about their future. "Daddy, look," Emma called from the top of the climbing structure. Marcus waved back, then felt someone approach beside him. Patricia had started joining him for Emma's after-school playground time whenever her schedule permitted. "How did the Henley trial go today?" Marcus asked. "Guilty on all counts. He's looking at 20 to 25 years in federal prison." Patricia smiled with satisfaction. "The judge said your testimony was particularly effective." "Good. Emma deserves to grow up in a world where people can't buy their way out of consequences." They stood in comfortable silence, watching Emma navigate the playground equipment with the careful confidence of an 8-year-old who had learned that the adults in her life would keep her safe. "Marcus," Patricia said quietly, "I have something to tell you." He looked at her, noting the slight nervousness in her voice. "The board of directors offered me a position heading the new government contracts division in Washington. It would mean moving to D.C. probably for several years." Marcus felt his heart sink. Over the past 3 months, Patricia had become not just his business partner, but someone he genuinely cared about. Emma had grown attached to her too, often asking when Miss Patricia would come to dinner again. "That sounds like a great opportunity," he said, trying to keep his voice neutral. "I turned it down." Marcus looked at her in surprise. "Why? That kind of position could be huge for your career." Patricia smiled. "Because I've learned something important lately. Success isn't just about career advancement or making money. It's about finding people who matter to you and building a life with them." She paused, watching Emma attempt to cross the monkey bars. "I've spent 10 years building Meridian Industries. I've proved everything I needed to prove professionally. Now I want to see what else life has to offer. Maybe learn how to be part of a family." Emma had successfully crossed the monkey bars and was now running toward them with a huge grin on her face. "Daddy, Miss Patricia. Did you see? I made it all the way across." Marcus scooped his daughter into a hug, spinning her around as she giggled with delight. When he set her down, she immediately hugged Patricia as well. "Can Miss Patricia come to dinner again tonight?" Emma asked. "I want to show her the picture I drew of all of us." Marcus looked at Patricia over his daughter's head. The woman who had once been just a client, then a partner in danger, had somehow become something much more important. She had transformed his life not just with money or opportunity, but by helping him remember who he was capable of being. "What do you think, Miss Patricia?" Marcus asked. "Would you like to stay for dinner?" Patricia's smile was answer enough. Sometimes the most important rescues weren't about saving someone from kidnappers or conspiracies. Sometimes they were about saving each other from loneliness, from giving up on dreams, from accepting that life would always be a struggle. As they walked toward the parking area, Emma between them chattering about her school day, Marcus reflected on how much had changed. 6 months ago, he had been a struggling single father installing basic security systems and wondering how he would pay next month's rent. Now he was the head of a successful security company, living in a safe neighborhood and watching his daughter thrive in ways he had only dreamed about. But most importantly, he had found someone who valued not just what he could do for her, but who he was as a person. The threat that had brought them together was over, but their story was just beginning.